I'd like to call this Bristol Borough Council meeting of October 12th to order. At this time, please rise for a moment of silence. Please salute the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Children, on the roll call, please.
Mr. Lutz? Here. Cohen? Here. Mr. Nell?
Here.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Here.
Mr. Musi?
Here.
Mr. Sabatini?
Here. Here.
Mr. DiGiuseppe?
Glad to see we have so many people here this evening. Our first point of business, is anybody here from Bristol Day? Would you please come forward, and we have a resolution to present to you. And a check.
And the check. Otherwise, she wasn't coming up without the check, right? I'm going to read this resolution. Resolution honoring the Bristol Cultural and Historical Foundation for the sponsorship of the annual Historic Bristol Day celebration. Whereas the Bristol Cultural and Historical Foundation will sponsor the annual Historic Bristol Day celebration on October 16, 2010, and whereas this event has brought positive exposure to the Borough of Bristol and has offered its citizens a day honoring the historic significance of Bristol Borough, and whereas the Council and Mayor of the Borough of Bristol desire to honor the Bristol Cultural and Historical Foundation and the many hard-working volunteers for their efforts in this annual event. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the Borough of Bristol, and it is hereby resolved by the authority of Same, that October 16, 2010 is hereby designated as Historic Bristol Day, and that the Bristol Cultural and Historical Foundation is hereby honored for its sponsorship of the annual Bristol Day event. The Council and Mayor congratulate the participants, volunteers, and sponsor of this event, which has proven to be a highlight of the many community events in Bristol Borough. Duly resolved this 12th day of October, 2010. So here's your resolution, and this is a check that this council likes to present to the society. Historic Bristol Day is huge in Bristol Borough. You all know that. Everybody comes from, how many do you think we bring, Catherine? 10,000, 15,000? Not as much as the do-up, but almost. But it's really, really important. The next presentation that we're going to make is to the parade committee. But I think that we should all really, really be very proud of what we do in this town. We celebrate a lot, and this is one of the many celebrations, and this council certainly supports the volunteers. So thank you very much.
I just wanted to say I hope everyone comes to Bristol Day, because not only did Martha Washington come to one of our early market days, but it'll be just as important to young children who come this year. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're up again.
I'm up again. Anybody?
The parade committee, is Ellen here?
Sure is. Like I said before, Bristol Borough celebrates a lot. We do Historic Bristol Day, we do Puerto Rican Day, African American Day, Celtic Day, we do Italian Day, we do a fantastic do-up, we do a lot of celebrating in this town. I have to tell you, though, that one of the biggest, and I guess the most time-honored and the most complete town celebrates this Christmas parade. And you have to remember that it takes a tremendous amount of volunteers. This parade committee works all year long. They have a Chinese auction. I mean, they do a lot. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of money. And everybody loves a parade, and it's really wonderful that we have this hometown Christmas parade. So thank you very much on behalf of Bristol Borough Council for doing such a good job. You got the mic? Yeah, you say it. Go ahead, just make it.
Ellen.
I'd like to make an announcement. If any borough resident wants to participate in our parade, there's participation forms available. It costs you nothing to be on our parade. Any type of float, music, we accept anything for the holiday spirit. So you can notify myself, Ellen Scansella, or Linda McLean at 215-788-5612. Thank you.
Thank you.
Presentation this evening from Councilman Anthony Musi.
I believe the biggest resource any town has is its youth. And we have a lot of youth here tonight who've done a lot of great things. This young man right here, a ball player, an honor student. You won the American Legion Award? Yes. Yeah, I thought so. Believe so? Attaboy. I could try to remember all the things he did, but I can't, so I'm going to have to read them off the plaque. A proclamation of the Borough of Bristol, County of Bucks, and Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, recognizing and commending Dylan Evert for his outstanding athletic achievement. Whereas the limits and well-being of historic Bristol Borough are not in its land or its location, but is how those who live here live their lives. And whereas Dylan Evert has brought pride to himself, his family, and to the borough by his outstanding athletic achievements, by competing in a 3-day tryout at the Houston Astros spring training facility where he played third, caught in the outfield, every inning of every game in the gold medal games. Whereas Dylan was one of 16 baseball players in the country to be selected from a group of 77 to represent the United States of America on Team USSSA, and will compete in the 15 and under at the 2011 gold medal games in July 2011 at the Astros spring training facility in Kissimmee, Florida. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Borough Council and the Mayor of Bristol Borough that Dylan Evert be publicly recognized and congratulated for his extraordinary athletic achievement. Be it further proclaimed by the Borough Council and Mayor, as well as all the citizens of Bristol Borough, that Dylan Evert is accorded all our well wishes in his future endeavors. Congratulations. That's the first time I ever shook an All-American's hand.
Mother.
I think Anthony would like to be your agent, because he knows. Huh? Fetus?
Fetus.
He'll take care of him. Our next presentation is for the 2010 State Championship Girls Baseball Team. Will be presented by Councilman Rodriguez.
There's a lot of things that can be said about these young ladies. I think, oh, look, starting with Jenna Fitt. Now, these girls are amazing. They've been playing together, I don't know, Buster, what did you say, 6, 7 years?
Longer.
Probably more than that. We've fought the battle over and over again. We have such great talent. We have the best pitchers in Bristol Borough. I don't care what anybody says, where they've been. They're here, right here. Any match to win Pennsylvania State champs, which is a wonderful thing and a wonderful...
Go to the mic, they can't hear you.
Oh, I'm loud. Sorry. To me, there's a lot of people to thank. You have to start with Little League, who sponsors and raises money to make it happen. You have to thank the devoted coaches When you go to the fields, if they're 10 and under, there's Buster and Brian. If they're 13 and under, 14 and under, there's Buster and Brian. 18 and under, there's Buster and Brian. Every year, there's Buster and Brian. Even when their daughters aren't even playing, they're there. That's devotion. That's hard. And that's heart. And that's why these girls went as far as they did, because of Buster and Brian. And Willie. And Willie. I'm proud to thank Little League. We have a team mom, 2 team moms that were there all the time. Val Spinellis, who can't be here today, Walker and all, went to the games, pushed that thing around, made sure these girls stayed in check, even the little hungry bears that we have. These girls don't weigh more than 100 pounds, they're always hungry, I don't know what to tell you. Ellen, she was always there for us. It was just such a great season. Every year we get to that point where we get there and then we fall back. And we just get there and something happens. And it's like it's always taken away from us. But this year, there was no stopping. Right, girls? So, I'd like to bring Buster, Brian, and Willie up as we congratulate these girls on behalf of... On behalf of Ralph DiGiuseppe and this entire council, on behalf of the parents who over and over have to go back and forth, do what we have to do to make it happen, on behalf of all the supporters in Bristol that stood behind us and said, whatever you need, we're there for you. Thank you. Now I'd like to congratulate the girls.
Alexa Adams. Casey Colfer.
Keep them on.
Alexis Rodriguez. Morgan Cullen. Unfortunately, Ashley Cantiello is not here. Jenna Pitalillo. Danielle O'Reilly. Brooke Duger. Lacey Wilkinson. Kirsten Kane. Alexa Stevens. Devin Spengler.
Steve, come up. First scorekeeper. Come on up.
And one more for Miranda Colon, and she will be here shortly.
Take a picture of
Kind of Betty touched all the bases. She made it easy for me. I want to thank the council, the mayor, the fire engine 50 and 53, I think, met us off the turnpike. Mr. Pitney helped us a great deal. And I think one thing that got overshadowed is like Betty said, we have the best pitchers in town, and all these girls, everybody played a part in this, but I think one girl that got overshadowed, we had a girl that was on crutches during the states, couldn't even walk. We needed somebody to pitch. She says, yo, I'm going to try it. I tell you what, she went out and beat the state champ of last year, 3 or 4 to 1. I mean, she had to take a strikeout because she couldn't even run first. And that was Alexis Rodriguez.
Any of the girls want to say anything?
Wait, pictures.
Let's get pictures. Come up further, Ellen. Get together. Come on.
I ain't that tall.
Sure.
My back hurts.
We got our mascot. Make her come up here.
The girl that ate everything. Come on, honey.
Make her come.
The best of the best. And if somebody says what do you say? Thank you.
She got hurt in February. She pitched to win the championship. My baby. Sure know how to clear a room. Always.
Okay. At this time, I'm going to open up public participation. This time, I'm going to open up public participation. So anybody on this side of the room would like to speak on anything, please go up to the podium, state your name, and
Hi, my name's Lou Galzarano. I believe I know pretty much everybody in the room. I've come here to speak tonight about the vote that I believe is going to take place this evening about tearing down the old pump house at the end of town. As some of you may know, I've proposed an idea to restore that pump house and use it to operate a crematory. I just want to point out what tonight's vote is really about. Tonight's vote isn't about whether or not there's a crematory. I'm fairly committed to the project. There are other buildings in very close proximity. So it's not really about that. What tonight's vote is about tearing down a historic building. Now, everywhere we go, tonight I heard it, historic Bristol Borough. Every gateway, there's a big sign. It says historic Bristol Borough, and I know that because I made those signs. 25 years ago. So, for a town that hangs its mantle on being historic, I think we should take a little bit more care in deciding to tear down historic buildings, especially when you have someone willing to do the project. So, what I want to leave you with is this. It's not about the crematory. That's not really respectfully for this body, for this group to say. It's another group. You're here just to decide whether we can give this building a chance to be resurrected into what it once was. And you may say, well, crematory. Again, we're not here to decide that tonight. There will be a crematory. There are buildings along that avenue that they're ready to go. I mean, the zoning's correct. It doesn't matter. All you can tell me is, no, you can't have that particular building, and we're going to knock it down. So, in effect, you're going to have the crematory anyway, and you're going to be missing a historic building, and really the tax base that I'm going to create. And that's really what I have to say.
We, for the last several years, been kicking this around, and we put it out to see who'd be interested in the building, and we thought at one time the Rotary Club was going to fix it, and then we thought the canal people were going to come in and restore it. What is the approximate cost, do you think, to renovate this building?
I'm willing to put, and this is not in machinery or anything, into just refurbishing the building, I'm willing to put in $250,000.
That's what your estimates come in about. I mean,
It's not a fancy building on the inside, and it doesn't need to be. I mean, I just, basically the brick walls that are on the inside is perfect for me. It's not, you know.
I think the dilemma we're having here is that council, and we discussed this numerous times, has a hard time with a crematory at the entrance to our town. You got Bristol Day this Saturday, and you got events that all weekends, and there's hearses pulling in, and it's an image that everybody, you know, as of this evening, discussed it, and they have a hard time with this. You know, the fact that, you know, we got a major event and people are parking and there's two hearses lined up outside and everybody knows.
Well, if I could address these as you come up.
Go ahead.
The idea about events being there, well, I mean, we could certainly take care of that within the framework of our agreement. I mean, we'll be closed. I mean, your events are usually on weekends. We're not in any hurry to work on weekends. And I do have another crematory nearby to handle anything like that. I mean, that's not going to be. You're not going to have hearses pulling through the doo-wop parade. And besides, they're not really hearses. Generally speaking, it's vans, and it would all be done outside of public view. I mean, we're in the funeral business. I'm in the business of respect. I'm not in the business of disrespect. And that's, you know, whether it's somebody's here's relatives or somebody that we don't know. It's the same respect. And I think I've proven that. We've been in business 100 years. I've proven it here in Bristol. I've proven it out in Levittown. In Levittown, I have a crematory there. You may not know it. I operate 2 retorts there now, and I'm within 60 feet of 10 houses. And if the fact is that you don't know it's there, that only speaks to my point. There's not going to be huge chimneys and smoke, and the state doesn't allow that. I mean, common sense would have to prevail here. It's very low impact. Now, if you say to me, well, we don't like the idea of knowing that there's deceased people, well, I would say this to you. They're only deceased people until they're your relatives. Then there's something different. And as a society, I think we're judged by the way we treat our loved ones after they die. Now, do crematories have to be in bad sections of Philadelphia or dark alleys? I don't think so. I think in this age where cremations are being more and more prevalent, people want to know that their parents are taken to a nice facility. Now, albeit I don't consider that area as prime like Radcliffe Street or somewhere in town. I mean, it is next to the sewer plant already. It's right across from the Borough yard. It's right at the edge of Roman Halls, and it's on the other side of the pump house, and it's surrounded by various other commercial buildings across the street. So it's a stretch to say that that's, one of the better areas in town. I think if not there, then where? Where do we go about the business of dealing with our dead families and friends? Why do we have to shove it? Why can't we be proud of a nice facility?
Mr. Lutz, let me just get a feel for council. I mean, anybody want to speak on this?
Well, I have a question. Would you have signage that says crematorium, or how would that work? I'm just curious.
Frank, am I,
That's fine.
Bristolian? I mean, I'll do whatever you think is right as far as that goes. I mean, no, I don't have, if you think there's going to be a big sign up on the street, no. I mean, there doesn't have to, I don't have any sign right now that says crematory. I mean, it's not that
So you
kind
have one in
of,
Levittown?
I'm not trying to attract business that way, through the front door.
I didn't know you had one in Levittown until tonight.
Well, that's,
And,
so,
my family through you, and I thought it was done with the utmost respect.
thank you.
And you've also spoken to someone else in my family who wants to have it, who is sick right now. And he wanted to see where, and you've been incredible, so I just want to point that out.
Well, thank you.
Anthony, you want to say anything, or?
Ron, I know what he's talking about because
Wait.
I know where your crematorium is.
Um,
Because you're right around the corner from my sister's in Levittown. And you would never know that there was a crematorium there. So I think we should give this gentleman the respect he's been in Bristol for a long time. He has buried a lot of your family, not my family members, because I always go to
the Irish side?
I'm
only teasing.
But he buried my sister's husband, and in Levittown, and a lot of people that I know in Levittown that he has buried. So I know he is a respectable man, and I don't think he would do anything that would hurt this town. And I think he should do that we should allow him to put that crematorium there, because if you're sending your loved ones to Philadelphia, you don't know what they're doing. He is going to take care of them.
Thank you.
I'm dealing with council, but Mr.
She took the words right out of my mouth, I think. No, what's the average
Can't.
today?
Right there. I would say, right now, starting there would be zero, obviously. But in Levittown, we did about 150 cremations last month, and nobody knows we're there. I mean, a car pulls up every, in the worst possible case, it's every 4 hours for 30 seconds, and we're going to plan on bringing them in the building to do what we need to do, obviously. I'm not going to do anything outside. I mean,
Smoke coming out of the stack. Is it heavy? Is it?
the state, very, very highly regulated by the state, and the fines from the state are not little slaps on the wrist. They're like, make me lose my house and business type fines. These are not people to fool with. We had an event couple months ago, but it was an event caused by a power failure. It was out of our control, and there was smoke. The state came, and they deemed it wasn't my fault. But that's one event in 4 years. Now, as far as what happens when we cremate bodies, normally there's no smoke at all. There should be no smoke, there should be no odor. The only thing that should come out of the stack is heat. Now, sometimes, when you're first starting in the morning, and every remains is placed inside a container, well, you might get 15 seconds of very light smoke. Herb, I don't know how to, you would probably be better at explaining like a fireplace, half of that, it's, as a matter of fact, if I may, I don't know if this is good, but Mr. Musey did take the time to come out and witness one, just to see what we were talking about. And I did appreciate that, the fact that you came out to see what was going on. And not much smoke. I think it's a chart. I don't know how it works. Like you could have 12 seconds of 25% smoke, 20 seconds of 5% smoke. It's a puff.
Leo, do you have anything? Pat? Betty?
A year ago, my father died. We viewed him at your Levittown funeral parlor. We cremated him there. Now you say no one notices what's going on, but you're viewing the bodies there. They're in there already. So they're not really leaving and coming back or getting dropped off, right?
I'm sorry.
Okay, like you view the body.
Right?
When you're done, you're not shipping it out anywhere to bring it back to cremate it.
No.
Okay, how big is that building? What's the square feet on that building in Levittown?
Well, I don't know what the square footage is in Levittown, but
It's nowhere near as small as this building would be, right?
it's smaller. The actual crematory in Philadelphia, in
The building
Levittown.
itself.
Well, we don't use the whole
The
building.
crematorium is inside that building,
Yes,
right?
yes. And you knew,
Nobody on this council would ever suggest that you're disrespectful in any way in the work that you do.
I know.
What you do is top of the line, you know it, we know it. Our concern are our constituents and how they feel about it. We represent our people. So maybe this is something that needs to be presented to them, so they're aware of how it works and what is the outcome of it all. I'm kind of upset that you would compare that building to this building when I, in fact, don't believe there's any comparison. Because like I'm saying is, you can view the body in there, the building's big, you wouldn't know that you're going to cremate the
there
body.
would be no viewing of bodies here.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So-
It's different.
Well, I don't see how the
My point
outside
is
world knows one way or the other.
Well, we know that they're coming here to be cremated. We don't know what's going on there, it just gets done. Right?
All right, Tony, let me just, I'll have everybody comment, whoever wants to speak on this issue. It seems to be, I was trying to get through council, so.
Yeah, my biggest point is that we don't ever think you would do anything to disrespect anyone.
I believe that.
You know that. But sometimes we're just listening to how our constituents feel.
Right. And again, let me point out that a vote to tear that building down is strictly a vote to tear down a historic building, because of the crematory I could do right across the street.
Exactly, but this building also is falling apart and it's dangerous and we don't want to see anyone get hurt. I mean, it's really...
Well, that wouldn't happen because
Well-
it would be rebuilt to the standards of
I'm not
wherever-
saying if you don't take it over, I'm saying if nothing's done, that's why
Oh,
I'm worried. You know.
There's no question that we need to act on that. But here I stand before you, ready to put up the money and do the project.
You done?
I'm done.
Mrs. Trinnell?
You and I have had this discussion several times over the past couple of months. We may not be Radcliffe Street at that end of town, Louis, but we're not by any stretch, not a good area. We have, as a matter of fact, and you mentioned it quite aptly, the sewer plant, the public works, auto recycling, the sewage pump house. In the West Ward, and the people that I represent, We don't need any more commercial buildings. Now, let me just say this to you. And Betty was alluding to that your crematory on Oxford Valley Road is in the back behind the building, and it's an existing funeral parlor. So hearse is going in.
It's not on the back. It's not in the back. It's
Right, that's irrelevant to me.
It's on the side.
I feel, this is for you a business arrangement. This building has looked this way for as long as I've lived in Bristol. I'll say 15 years. So I guess I'm a little bit offended that you would allude to this historic nature of the building itself, and that's the reason that you want to do this, that you're trying to preserve the historic value of the building. This is a business venture for you. This is not going to be utilized simply for your funeral establishment. You are going to subcontract out, and you are going to have every funeral parlor within a 30-mile radius is going to use that facility. And I don't think in that location that it's good. Louis, you can do it anywhere you want to. But I've never changed my story. This is the same conversation that you and I had in July and August, that Ralph and I have had, that I've had with every member of this council. I think it's a bad location. I don't think that we need any more of that on that end of the West Ward, where we have become, to a degree, the dumping ground. So we've got plenty of industry, and if anybody else who lives in the East Ward or the North Ward or the South Ward has an ulterior position where they'd like to put, that's fine. But I have the feeling that if this was going to go on anybody else's ward, I have the suspect that they would have the same reaction. So I personally believe that this council should stick to the original agenda item, which was to tear down that building, and then you can find an alternate space to do your business.
And that's certainly one way to look at it. Again, I might add that as far as for the town, I would bring in taxes that do not exist right now, that would, from a stable business that's been around for 100 years. I mean, it's not like we're going to fold up tomorrow. That would be forever. I would, you say we don't need another commercial building, but the building would be the same building that's there. It's not another building, it's that building. And it would be restored to the historical look that it always had,
And you do
which is our
understand
genre
that
here.
that location is in a conservation area, and that you would have to go through the zoning board
That
to
there's
get,
no
it's not
question
zoned
about
for
that.
that.
That's why I said it's not really, we're not really talking about the crematory, that's for another body. We're talking about right now. That was the point I was trying to make when I got here.
I'll just say a few words, Ralph. In the same line as Mrs. Purnell. Years ago, there was a proposal from an outfit that wanted to install an incinerator over at Hunter Wilson. And it was hospital red bag waste. I guess that's, amputees and things of that nature that had to be destroyed through an incinerator. I was opposed to that at that time because it was my ward, and the people in my ward didn't want it. And if I think about it's easy for me to say what the people in the West Ward should have and what they shouldn't have. But I wouldn't want it in my ward, and I voted against it then, and I'm going to vote against it now.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Anything else, Lois?
Yeah, when I built the funeral home in Levittown, and I was at a meeting just like this, well, they had organized resistance. I'm not talking about a couple of bruised feelings or whatever. I'm talking about organized. They had meetings. They were cutting down my signs. They showed up in force. It was pandemonium. It was almost a fight. Well, that evening I prevailed, and everybody was as mad as could be. And now those people that live around me, I'm Uncle Lou to their kids. We exchange gifts at Christmas. It's just perception. It's just knee-jerk perception. And as far as what you're talking about, Jim, I can appreciate that, because there's more than just carving in that type of waste. There's needles, There's the worst of the worst as far as diseases and plastics, and I'm not able to do anything near that. That license is so far above the license that I have, it would take 10 years probably to get a license like that, or you'd need a lot of push. I mean, it's a completely different animal. But I understand the perception, I do. But like I said, if the crematory is going to be built anyway, and I believe it will, then why not save a building in the bargain and add a tax base to this town? I don't see people, I mean, we're in tough times. I'm going to create some new jobs, I'm going to create a tax base, and I'm going to restore a building.
All right, thank you. Anybody else on this side of the room like to speak, please go to the podium.
Hello, Tony Ivy, 27 West Railroad Avenue, Bristol Borough. First, I'd like to address Mr. Galzarado actually made some good points about the building. If it actually would be considered a historic building, and the borough actually had the money to do this, which I don't think we do at this time, I think the building should have been or should be considered at that point to be resurrected as a water pump house, and as such, the borough residents and visitors to the borough from out of state and out of the country go to this water pump house that's an historical building and see what the water pump house would have looked like, maybe through some kind of glass windows or some kind of walk-in. They could do it on their own. It doesn't have to be a guided tour. Simulate the water pump system. I think that would be a great idea. But as far as the use of that historic building that's resurrected into a water pump house or / crematorium, I think it's a really bad idea, especially in lieu of the fact that the long-term goal of the borough is to mass the water treatment facility or waste management facility, whatever those towers are called, and the Roman Haas plant would be covered up, massed, by trees and barriers and removal of the railroad tracks and adding the addition of the running and walking paths. So that the whole gateway into the borough, you're coming into a nice scenic area, and you come to that Y intersection, you go to your historic part, the conventions, what we're doing in town, and you'll see the historic building, if it's still there, as a water pump house, as it should be. And Mr. Galzarano made valid points. There's a lot of other buildings in the borough that would be, they're not historic buildings, and that he could do his business out of, and it would be out of sight, out of mind, just like he said. And I want to make a point about the place he mentioned there was a big turnout when he wanted to build a crematorium at some place. Funeral home, and people didn't want it there. And you said, after a while they calmed down. Well, I'd probably fathom a guess that some of those people that didn't want it there may have moved, and you got new people in place, younger people, and they don't know what the heck's going on at that point. I'm not saying that's the case 100% of the time, but my wife and I already discussed this, and we're one of the residents don't like this idea right next to the historic part. We will relocate at that point. And I'd like to question how much tax base would that one little plot of land actually create for the borough that he could do it any other place in the borough, any other place, anywhere. I mean, is that a threat that if you don't get that one building, you're not going to give us a tax base? I mean, come on. You can do that building anywhere.
Address your questions to council.
Okay, I apologize. Actually, I do have a couple of questions. What would be the total cost if this building was to be renovated? Mr. Galzarano said he'd put up $250,000, so I'm assuming that's going to be a lot more than that much?
If you were doing the entire building with the inside, and Mr. Galzarano doesn't need heat or air conditioning, and he doesn't have to finish the inside the way you would for office space,
Right.
you probably could add another 50, maybe you'll be over 300,000.
And where would that money come out of? The borough's tax, the borough system, or
For Mr. Galzarano,
to renovate the building? He said he'd
we
put up
have no
250.
intention to renovate it.
Okay, right, okay.
Our intention is either, the discussion tonight is to tear the building down
Right.
and leave it open space. And Mr. Galzarano is proposing for us to put it out to bid, not to tear it down, and then he was hoping to bid on it and hopefully become the successful bidder. And then, if he was, then he would have to meet all the obligations, zoning, planning, floodplain, you have a lot of issues to deal with.
Right.
So council's decision tonight isn't to grant a crematory there. Our decision tonight is to either tear down the building or put it back out to bid and see if somebody's interested. But as we discussed this evening, for the last 2 years or more, every time we went out and advertised and whatever we did, nobody ever showed an interest except the Rotary Club and the Canal Museum. Once the cost came in, and we do have costs from the canal organization, it was over $300,000 to fix the building. So we would never spend any money into the building. It's taxpayer money.
Okay. Robin already discussed the permitted use. The marshes, the conservation area is right there, so that was something I had written down in my notes. I didn't bring all my notes with me tonight, but that if we know that the marsh is right there and we have a conservation zoning code, then obviously he would have to reapply for a code amendment.
It would be a long process to get this approved.
Right.
It's not something that meets our zoning, so I think zoning would need to be changed. The conservation bill, I mean, maybe you could explain to the public all the things that would have to take place to make this happen?
Yeah, there's probably at least 4 steps. The first would be council would have to vote to put it out to bid, and the way we did it last time is that not only would we look for the highest bidder, but it would be the highest bidder who's making a proposal that we would, council would be agreeable to, and of course that would be conditioned on them getting all the permits. So the first thing would be, it's not zoned, it's zoned conservation. So the applicant would either have to go to zoning board to get a use variance or come to council and get a change of zoning. Number 2 is it may require land development approval. I'm not sure. I'd have to look at the ordinance. And also in the zoning regulations are the new floodplain regulations. The building's not in the floodway, but it's in the floodplain. So he would have to meet those also. There are basically the 3 hurdles if he were to become awarded as the highest reasonable bidder. So that would be the process. It's at least a 2 or 3 or 4 step process.
I'd like to question, I need to question a few about Mr. Galzerano's statements. One, how many stoves or ovens would be at that premise if it went through to that phase? Allowed to do that building? Well, I need to ask so the public's aware of that. What kind of, if you have one stove, you have to have a smokestack. So if you have more than one stove, you have more than one smokestack, correct?
Am I allowed to answer this stuff, Ralph?
If it means something to you, Tony, I'll permit him to answer the question.
It does. I mean, I have 3 questions.
For every oven, Louis, do you need a smokestack?
Yes.
Okay.
And how many ovens would you intend to put in that little building there?
Well, I figure it could hold up to 3, but obviously we would put 1 for now.
Okay. The next question, 2 more questions. New jobs. How many technicians does it take to run the whole premise with 4 ovens?
I don't know with 4, I've never done it, but with 1 it would take 3.
One employee for 3 stoves?
No, 1 retort, as they're called, would take 3 employees.
Okay. And last question is, Mr. Galzerano mentioned about the projected use of some kind of medical waste treatment burning facility. I understand it, when you get biological waste, it's bagged and tagged in a red bag, biohazard symbol. We want to throw it in an incinerator and get rid of it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that would not be the case with a person who possibly died of some kind of contagion. The body that you view at the crematorium is not bagged and tagged in a red biological bag and then brought to the crematorium to be incinerated at a lower degree than the medical waste treatment facility would incinerate at. So now you got the escape possibility of escaping radons from dentures and escaping chemicals from the biological hazard that patient might have incurred when he died.
No. Cremations take place at 2,000 degrees, which is, at the hospital, that's what they do. If they take care of the hospital, take care of their own right now. Not medical waste. let's face it, if someone has a nasty disease, pick one. Well, while they're alive, they go to the bathroom, that goes into the water system, it goes right across the street.
It's in a different form. It's not a gas. It's a
Tony,
liquid or solid.
what else do you have for us?
I mean, I've read as much as I can on the internet about the
Okay.
stuff. It's not governed nowhere near as high as the biological medical waste treatment plants would be. Nowhere near as high.
Is there anybody else on this side of the room who would like to comment on anything? Anybody on this side of the room would like to comment on anything? That ends public participation. We're going to take a 5-minute recess. I'm going to call this meeting back in session at 8:10. We took a short recess. Speak to Mr. Galzarano personally. I mean, me and him have been friends our whole life and grew up together, and it's a tough vote for this council to make this evening, but it's going to be made, and however the votes fall, they fall. Okay, number 2 on the agenda.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of 9:13 and 10:05, to accept the treasurer's report for August, to accept the police and DJ's report, to accept the fire chief's report, to accept borough inspector's report, to accept HARB report, and to accept the zoning hearing board report.
Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Sabatini. Questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, at the work session minutes, page 3, first paragraph, there's approximately 3.5 lines there on the question and answer period between myself and Ms. Galingo. We had about a 15-minute conversation. None of that's included in the minutes. I'm voting no.
Pardon me?
I'm voting no. I'm telling you why.
On,
I'm telling you why I'm voting no.
but just on that section, or you're voting no on everything? The
I'm
Harvard?
voting no on the work session of October the 4th.
On the minutes only?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 3 on the agenda.
Mr. President, I'd like to authorize the demolition of the former water pump house located on Maple Beach and Canals End Road.
Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Rodriguez. Could I get a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Chairman, before we do that, there's no cost associated with this project. Can we have something in there, and I think it was said at a work session, it was $3,900. Is that right?
I can't hear you, Jimmy.
I think there needs to be a cost associated with this expenditure. Now, it doesn't say that in the motion, and I'm thinking it should say, at a cost not to exceed $3,900, if that's what it is.
That could be part of it, Mrs. Trino.
Should I amend
At the
it?
work session, Mr. Dillon gave us Mr. DiNucci's quote, which was $3,900, correct? Correct.
But my point is this.
You wanted to not to
Say
exceed
at a cost not to
$3,900,
exceed $3,900.
Okay.
I don't want to come back and see a $6,000 bill with DiNucci to knock that building down.
and you never seen any.
This way we'll
I'd
be
like to
sure.
make a motion to authorize the demolition of the former water pump house located on Maple Beach and Canals End Road not to exceed $3,900 by DiNucci Excavating.
Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Rodriguez. Any questions or comments? Roll call vote, please. Roll call, yes means to tear it down, no means not to tear it down.
Okay?
Hold on 1 minute. Something you want to say?
There is. I had an opportunity to speak with Mr. Ivy, and he's a gentleman. And I could see that this is a situation where I'm friends with everybody on this board, and people might have different ideas than I do. I understand that. So, rather than maybe twist all this together, I think I think at this point, I'm just going to withdraw my whatever it is, for this vote. I will not stand in the way of this project, if you want to take it down. There's other opportunities, and I can see it in everybody's faces. This is no, it's really not worth the strain, I don't believe. But thank you for listening to it.
I told you earlier, and I told you during the recess, it's a tough decision because we're family and grew up together, and our families grew up together, and, that's something I had to vote on tonight, and
Actually, it would have been
wanted to
easier
ruin
if
our
I had people
friendship.
screaming and yelling at me, I think, but, with the absence of that, it makes it kind of hard to...
Well, thanks for coming and explaining everything to us. That was very helpful, I think, for everybody's concern, because...
All right, we got a motion on the floor, and we have a second, and we have a roll call vote. So,
Mr. Lutz?
Yes.
Ms. Cullen?
No.
Ms. Trinnell?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Musi?
No.
Mr. Sabatini?
Yes.
Mr. Plensky?
Yes.
Mr. Di Giuseppe?
yes.
Two.
Thank you, Lois, for...
Did you get to withdraw it?
We still had to vote.
I couldn't even win on that one.
Number 4 on the agenda.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to accept the DEP Coastal Zone Management Grant Agreement in the amount of $50,000 to assist in engineering the design of the Gateway Project.
Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Plensky. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 5.
Mr. President, go ahead.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to accept the Environmental Protection Agency grant in the amount of $100,000 for additional cleanup for the former Bristol Steel site per the Redevelopment Authority letter dated 10/6/10.
Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Cullen. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Before we go on to the next one, we just received a letter today that we were just awarded another $175,300. So we're going to need, and that's got to be accepted upon this evening. So at the end of item number 11, we're going to need to suspend the rules. Or, Mr. Salerno, could have we added that to the list?
No, I think we should suspend the rules because it's a different grant from a different body. Suspend the rules and then you can motion.
So that brings us up to $275,300 in grant money that we just received.
Ralph, would you just explain to me what it's for? I didn't get that.
It's
No,
environmental.
we got the, okay, that's, the additional grant is for the Environmental Protection Agency?
The grant that's on your agenda is from the federal government, from the Environmental Protection Agency. This is based on the council's resolution of August 2010, where you asked the Redevelopment Authority to assist in trying to obtain an additional $299,900 in funding for the environmental cleanup at the old Bristol steel site. And we did receive the one letter late last week from EPA for $100,000, and today the borough received a letter from the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development in the amount of $175,300 towards that same cleanup of the old Bristol steel site.
Okay. Number 6.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to accept Amtrak's offer to install an 8-foot-high black opal metal picket fence on borough property, approximately 2,031 linear feet per Amtrak 9/17/10 memo.
Do I have a second? Second by
Second.
Mr. Lutz.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments?
I have a quick one, for the solicitor. With this 8-foot black opal metal fence, and it is aluminum, right?
Aluminum or steel, I don't know.
Metal, they call it metal.
It's aluminum. We agree to maintain it, right? Does maintaining that fence increase our liability? If the fence breaks, somebody gets hurt on the track?
I don't believe there's any liability involved for something like that. I would have to check that. Remember, the borough is only liable for certain exceptions, otherwise we're immune.
If somebody walks to that training tonight, God,
I understand what you're
gets hurt,
saying, right?
they're going to sue, Connery Island's going to sue the borough, right? I would think we'd be naming the suit. I could be wrong, I don't know.
Right.
But the fact that if we agree, Connery Island's going to say, well, that's not our fence, that if somebody knocks down an 8-foot section of fence, and then somebody better, does that increase our liability? You know, that's my concern.
It may.
Pardon me?
It may. I would have to look into that.
Then we need to increase our insurance to handle that.
I think we want the fence, but I think you got good concerns about, do we
I don't have a
need
problem
to?
with the fence, I think the fence is a good
Okay,
idea.
so we're voting on the fence.
Putting on the fence, but I don't want to
You
get stuck
just
in the
need to
law.
make sure that some of these legal questions are answered, and solicitor can look into that. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 7.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to award a bid for the municipal building parking lot rehabilitation plan.
And just let me read into, for record, the amount. Mr. Dillon, if we could put the amounts and the names from now on, I would appreciate it. The low bid is to R&S General Contractor in the amount of $29,712.15. The next bid was $39,974, almost $10,000 less, and the bid higher than that was $42,729.50. So from the last time we even put it out to bid, we saved some money, and that's what we were looking for. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Number 8.
Mr. President, I'd like to approve the expenditure of $500 a month for 6 months to the Bucks County Senior Center on Wood Street.
Do I have a second?
I have a question.
I need a second first. Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Cullen. Questions?
Have we received anything from them for the last 6 months showing us anything? What's coming in, what's coming out?
I did receive something, I believe, last month, and basically, yeah, they're doing better than they were, but I think that this $500 a month expenditure is really helping them with the electric bill to cool the building through the summer, and they're looking forward to this for to heat it during the winter.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
And I'm voting no also, Maria. I think we made a 6-month commitment, and I'm not in favor of another 6 months.
I would have liked to see
Some
something.
financial records.
Sorry.
Number 9.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the advertising for an amendment to the parking ordinance to allow for a 10-minute drop-off zone on each block of Mill Street.
I have a second. Second by Ms. Rodriguez. Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 10.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to create Assistant Borough Inspector position in non-supervisors union contract.
I have a second. Second by Ms. Rodriguez. Questions or comments? Just let me explain what that wording means. Myself, the solicitor, and the borough manager met with the union representatives for the borough. And before we hire anybody, we had to add this position into the union contract because there was no position in there for borough inspector. So when we met with them, we negotiated the rate, the salary, the benefits, vacations, we went through the whole package, and they agreed that if we hire this individual, whoever the individual may be, it doesn't have to be, I mean, we have Rory next, but it's a position in there. Now, he has to make that decision whether he wants to join the union or does not want to join the union. That doesn't matter to us. What matters to us is that the position is now in the contract if that person elects to join the union. So that's what that number 10 represents. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I assume this is a full-time position, and that's why we're putting it in.
Correct.
It is my understanding that the intent with hiring another full-time inspector is to cut down on the fees that we pay BIU every month.
We said at the last meeting.
No, you said that Rory has some unique qualifications. He's gone to school, he's got some certifications, and then eventually BIU will get less work, because he'll do some of the work.
That's our goal eventually, but, I mean, Rory right now is capable of doing building inspections, fire inspections, rental inspections, but to get back to BIU, and you brought up the rate that they get an hour, BIU only gets paid on the permit, so if for 6 months we didn't do business in Bristol, we don't have a payroll to worry about with BIU.
My question is this, if Rory becomes full-time, can he do permit?
He can to a certain extent.
Well, that's what I want to hear. I mean, if we're going to hire another guy full-time, then I expect that the outsider, he's averaging somewhere around $3,000 a month. Well, he has for like the last 4 months.
Rory?
No, BIU. Has averaged around $4,000 a month. If we're going to hire Rory full-time, that's fine. My question is, let's take some of that $3,000 away from BIU to pay for Rory.
But that may not happen, Mr. Lutz. For the simple reason, there's things that Rory can't do that they do.
Can Rory get proper training to do those things that he can't do?
Sure, anybody could be trained to do anything, but let me just explain something to you. BIU, you said they average $3,000 a month. Let's say a job comes in and it's $100,000 permit fees. Well, then BIU's number may change to $10,000, $15,000 a month. Or if nobody comes in with a big job, their permit fees may go to $0 per month. So whatever we're paying them, we're making money on. We never lost money by using BIU because we have no overhead with them. So it isn't what they're getting, if they're getting a percentage of the permit. So whether that you see on that sheet...
But that's not my point. Whatever that percentage is, can be going into the borough. I mean, if could go towards Rory's salary.
Fine.
That's my point.
That's fine. Right. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 11.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to hire Rory LaRose as a full-time employee.
Second by Mr. Musi. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we need to add this, we need a motion to suspend the rules.
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules.
I got a motion on the floor to suspend the rules to add an item to the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I need a motion.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to accept the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development grant in the amount of $175,300.
Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Rodriguez.
What was the amount again?
175.3.
75,300. Do I have a second by Ms. Rodriguez. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Before we adjourn, Mayor, do you have anything? I apologize.
As we all know, we had, like you said last week, we had a party down on Mill Street. And unfortunately for me, I was one of the bus drivers that provided transportation. And in the 5 years, that's all I've done. I've never got to go down and see the doo-wop. So I figured this year, being that I'm the mayor now, provide the transportation. And by the way, I must have, myself personally, we had 2 buses going. I personally transported probably about 1,000 people from the Lennox parking lot. And I got nothing but good comments about Bristol, about the doo-wop. They loved it, and they wish they would have it like once a month. I told them I would probably be too little expensive for us. But on behalf of the mayor's office, I'd like to present this check to the doo-wop committee in an amount of $200 to start next year.
Thank you very much.
Anything else before we adjourn? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Adjourn.